right, let's do this. Original Sin by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson came out in May of 2025 and covers a disastrous sequence of events for the Democratic Party culminating in the presidential election defeat of Kamala Harris. In my book eval, I will investigate whether or not Joe Biden should have run for president in 2024 and what are the implications. The redemption of the Democratic Party starts today with this type of work. The great Italian writer Umberto Eco wrote that books are not made to be believed, but to be subjected to inquiry. When we consider a book, we mustn't ask ourselves what it says, but what it means. Let's get into it. The biggest question of the whole book, the title of the book, is the premise. Was or is Joe Biden so diminished that he should not have run for a second term, innocent or guilty? This book details many, many examples where Biden could not follow conversations, could not recall situations, didn't recognize people like George Clooney, canceled meetings, didn't even bother to schedule meetings because he was simply too tired. People who liked Joe Biden and wanted him to succeed all independently concluded that he was diminished. But the staff told each first time they would talk to somebody, they'd say, well, this is just a one-off. Joe's just having a bad day. That's why he looked diminished to you. That's not the way he really is. It was a false impression. The staff close to Biden actively worked to hide his frailties, relieve the burden of being president, and limit his appearances. And I hate to say it, but there's only one reason so many people acted like that. He was definitively and unequivocally diminished from what he once was and was not fit to run again for president. Personally, after reading this book, and I've read Fight and a few other books about him, I think there's enough evidence to say he should not have even been president in 2024 and probably even 2023. He should have resigned. It's that bad. Everybody, please read this book and the other books about it right now. It's a major issue that I think is the problem with the Democratic Party, but also the source for our redemption. Here's the most damning evidence in the whole book. Doing a test would be an admission that there were reasons for concern, a cognitive test. And even if Biden did do a test, his aides believed that his critics would still not be satisfied. There was also the risk of the unknown, of what such a test might reveal. And, well, for God's sake, that's the job of being the president. You have to be there. You have to be with it mentally. If you're not up for that, then you need to resign. He volunteered to be president. This isn't something that was forced upon him. I believed in Joe Biden. I donated to his campaign in 2020, and I voted for him too. I wanted this guy to succeed. I wanted him to be fine. But this book really proves to me that he failed us. When you volunteer to run for president, you have to live up to high expectations. Now, this is America, which is good, and each of us gets to make up our own mind on the situation. The only thing that I ask is that each person in the Democratic Party study the issue seriously, give it the respect it deserves, and read this book and similar books, which I'm going to be going over on this channel, and come to your own conclusion. And if, like me, you conclude that he was not fit to volunteer himself to run for president again and push out other candidates, then there is only one very, very painful conclusion, one terrible takeaway. And this lesson is that we have to condemn and criticize the reputations of all our elected leaders, Democrat and Republican, who continue on in a role when they are no longer able to effectively do it to the best of their abilities. And not just Joe Biden, but Senator Feinstein, too, here in California. There is a lot of evidence and testimony that she wasn't with it either, and she had to physically die to stop her from running again. Now, I live in Scotts Valley, California. It's a tiny town that most nobody has even heard of, thousands of miles away from where Joe Biden lives. I acknowledge there is virtually nothing that I can say or do to punish him directly. I am irrelevant to him. I'm not saying that we should send him to jail. This isn't the French Revolution. We're not going to behead him. We cannot take away his time as president or all of his flights on Air Force One, the support and the votes that he received during his 36 years as senator. We cannot undo his 8 years as vice president or take away the Presidential Medal of Freedom that President Obama gave him. The power and the fame and the celebrity that came with all of his positions, but we can now always bring it up when we discuss his reputation and his legacy. I say this partly because I'm mad at him, but really, the bigger issue is to prevent this from happening again, to prevent the next senator or president or governor from continuing on when he and she is in such decline that they can't really do it anymore. And giving that person the sincere belief and fear that the Democratic electorate will 100% trash your reputation if you do something like this again. Your legacy will be garbage. Our leaders need to fear us. If you're a leader in that position, you have to be the bigger man or be the bigger woman and step down. Kind of like what Nancy Pelosi did. I respect that. It doesn't take away the great life that Joe Biden's led, the world leaders he's met, and the policy he's crafted for our country. It doesn't mean he's all bad or evil. But just like excluding some of the steroid-using baseball players from the Hall of Fame, we have an obligation to repeatedly and loudly tarnish their reputation as a means of stopping it from happening again. The only way to stop the next leader from repeating the mistakes and hurting all of us, Democrat, Republican, Independent, from hurting everybody in our country, is to condemn Biden's reputation. So that's what I ask of everybody watching this video and everybody who is trying to help the Democratic Party now, trying to help us win the next election. We also have a responsibility, and this is painful, to condemn the people around President Biden who enabled him to run again, like his cabinet, who did not provide the accurate feedback, the painful challenges, which they should have done. Consider this. If somebody in 2023 from the cabinet or Harris had resigned and just said, I cannot do this anymore, I cannot support Joe Biden because he's too far gone, he's too diminished, that person would be in line to be president someday, to lead our party and our country. The short-term pain and uncertainty from a principled stand against Biden in 2023 or 2024 would result in long-term success, credibility, respect, support. But nobody close to him did that, and nobody from his inner circle should go on to be elected again. Not Gavin Newsom, not Secretary of State Blinken, Buttigieg, Kamala Harris. It's a very small number of Democrats who contributed to protecting him. They protected their own reputation too, and they deserve to be blamed for this missed opportunity. The last thing that the Biden family could do to salvage a little bit of their reputation out of this disaster is to not fight our condemnation and criticism of them. Accept that we're going to disparage their reputation for many years to come, and by accepting it, they can get some of their own redemption. They can start to earn back their credibility by saying, yes, we're going to take short-term pain for the long-term benefit of our country. I know, even as I say this, that they will not do that. I very much doubt they will ever admit a mistake. Joe Biden has had many successes in his career. He was a smart man, and because of his hard work and his sharp mind, he did a lot. He won elections. Original Sin shows how Joe Biden so consistently made mistakes in his final 2 years of his presidency, so consistently misremembered people, couldn't remember dates, so consistently chose the wrong option for our people, that it's almost as if he was a different person than the man we elected in 2020. Almost as if he was suffering from advanced cognitive decline.